Unnatural man, forgetting. I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down. Carol's King in one of the National Endowment for the Arts Songs of the Century. This Song of the Century could very well be an anthem, albeit a dirge, a lament at least, of Genesis, particularly of its second episode in which untamed, grasping emotion tears creation, causing the earth to tremble and to groan, and the stars to tumble, and a Greta Thunberg to sail the seas, seeking solace for the suffering earth. For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers together until now, sighs St. Paul. How did this happen? How did glorious creation turn so inglorious? This is the story of the second episode of Genesis, told right after God had finished his creation, having pronounced it very good. This episode, as story, covers Genesis chapter 2 verse 4 up to the end of the fourth chapter, but as reality extends up to this, our very moment. The key: humanity forgetting and glory obscuring the earth. History of the earth and the heavens. We need to put in context, as the Bible does, the story we recounted in our first chapter. That story belongs to the second of the 12 natural chapters of Genesis, as opposed to the present chapter divisions. The first natural chapter, Genesis 1:1 to 2:3, tells of God's very good creation. The second natural chapter tells of the undoing of this very good creation. It starts with, "This is the history of the heavens and the earth," proceeds with the story of the creation of man and woman, including the unfolding of human identity as recounted in our previous chapter, and ends with using the name Enosh, the Hebrew word specifically for man, humankind, at their weakest, lowest mortal nature. Striking, if not convicting, is how the Bible concludes this history. At this time, that is, at this point when humankind, Enosh, this mortal, is weakest, lowliest, most insignificant, they first began to invoke the name of the Lord. It is crucial to remember this context so we do not lose sight of what the story is about. Again, the following are the important signposts. First, the story as a whole is about the heavens and the earth, that is, about the whole of creation, the whole universe. Second, central to this story is the role of humanity, Adam, man and woman, but, this cannot be overemphasized, it is not only about humanity, but about the earth and the heavens. Third, the story is a tragedy about how the whole, very good creation unraveled, resulting from humanity's failed struggle with their, man and woman, nature and identity. Fourth, at the lowest point of the episode, certainly not the lowest point in the entire biblical story, when humanity first realizes their true frailty, they first begin to call on the name of the Lord. Man forgetting, Adam, male, husband. Bearing this context in mind, let us now revisit the story of Adam. God created the heavens and the earth and all that live in them, and put Adam, man and woman, the highest of the creatures, to care for them. Man is point person in the servant role, and woman is his help. They are first identified as one, Adam, humankind, then as two, male and female, and finally as one flesh, husband and wife. Thus far, chapters 1 and 2 of Genesis. Chapter 3 then begins with what is popularly seen as the story of the fall. Eve is deceived by the serpent into eating the forbidden fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and gets Adam to do so too. This popular story, however, is not exactly what the Bible tells. For one, reading Genesis closely and sensitively, you find that it was not Eve whom the serpent deceived, but the woman. And it was not Adam she got to also eat, but her husband. It is important to note details like these, inasmuch as the Bible, as we have already remarked, is very careful and strategic in its use of words and in how and when it uses them. Secondly, this episode in Genesis 3 on the eating of the forbidden fruit is not the fall. This fall really begins in the previous chapter, Genesis 2, and goes on into the next chapter, Genesis 4. Sensitivity to the Bible story, including the very words it uses and how and when and why it uses them, enables us to understand the finely nuanced story the Bible tells. As to the names, the Bible has thus far used 4 words to refer to man. Adam, representing humankind, male, Zakar, Adam, the personal name of the first human male, and husband, Ish, man in relation to woman. For woman, the Bible has thus far used only one word, Isha, understood as woman or wife, depending on context, or perhaps to be consistently understood in the present story as wife. With these details in mind, this then is the biblical story. The beginning of the fall is the moment the man, already just named Adam, sees woman, calls her Isha, wife, and himself Ish, husband. There should be nothing wrong with this. After all, they really are husband and wife. Nothing wrong, especially if the Zakar does not forget that while he is now Ish, a husband, he still is also Adam, Zakar, and Nefesh with responsibility to care for the earth and his fellow creatures. Tragically, in the Bible's telling, his new self-assumed identity as Ish totally absorbs and consumes him. He is so totally bewitched by woman that he now sees himself as only an Ish, a husband. The Bible communicates this first by reporting in high poetic verse the man's first reaction upon seeing woman. This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Then, after this ecstatic explosion, the Bible portrays man as being silent and unseen, even throughout the serpent and deception in which he reappears only as husband, Ish, reduced to mute obedience to his wife, and regains his voice only later when God confronts him as man, Ha-Adam. His mute obedience is curious, particularly in light of the New Testament's testimony that the man was not deceived by the serpent. Adam was not deceived, but the woman, because she was fully deceived, fell into transgression. Adam indeed, as the Bible tells it, is not deceived by the serpent. He knows the serpent is lying and his wife is deceived. And he knows exactly what he is doing in eating of the forbidden fruit. He is defying God. Yet as Ish, he can do nothing else. Rather, he is now willing to defy God for the sake of his wife. His being Ish trumps and trashes his being Adam. His being a husband all but effaces and makes him neglect his being Adam, a being from and to care for the ground. He forgets his being Zakar and Nefesh Haya with responsibility to care for his fellow creatures. He disregards his being an image of God, tasked to serve the whole creation. Now he is just husband with eyes only for his wife and exists solely to serve her. Adam truly is not deceived by the serpent. He is willingly, if uncontrollably, captivated. He is besotted by woman. Now Ish defies all for the Isha. Man defies all for woman. Why? The Bible does not answer this in its story. It does not even say, though it certainly implies, that the woman is so very bewitchingly beautiful that she is pulchritudinous perfection. Rather, it has allowed humanity to understand this by intractable, exquisitely painful, existential, historical experience. Countless poems, songs, and stories have expressed humanity's tragic answer. Filipinos helplessly croon it to their women thus: kung tunay mang ako ay alipinin mo, ang lahat sa buhay ko ay dahil sa iyo. Which translates as, if thou but decree, mine heart thine slave be, all my life's for thee, all because of thee. And in surrender, concede, hahamakin lahat, makamit ka lamang, defy all, just to have thee. Carol King sings it thus: my emotions are something I just can't tame. I just got to have you, baby. By the Bible's story, woman does nothing to have this effect on the husband. On the contrary, woman bewitches the husband simply by being herself, the natural woman, the way God has created her. And because God takes very special care in creating woman, Bana, not just Yatsar, woman cannot be less than the perfection of pulchritude. Man just needs to tame his emotions before her by remembering that he is not only husband but also earth-bound Adam, a male bonded to his fellow creatures and the image of God. Alas, man forgets, and in forgetting falls.